Indie game makers have come a long way over the past 5 or 6 years. They used to exist on the fringes of the games industry and no one really paid attention to anything they were doing. But now indie game developers play an integral part in the games industry. And we're seeing this as Microsoft and Sony really make a push to support independent game developers. Microsoft led the way in supporting indie games on console with Xbox Live Arcade, but the publisher did have a reputation of being difficult to work with.
We've been working with independent developers since years and years and years, right? I mean, honestly, going all the way back to when Bill Gates wrote BASIC for the Altair, right? We're big supporters on Xbox 360 with XBLA. A lot of pioneering games launched on XBLA.
Xbox Live Arcade had FAS. Coming up, it had Braid, which was a success. It had Super Meat Boy. All the big games were happening at Xbox Live Arcade.
At E3, we announced that on Xbox 360, independent developers had generated more than $1 billion in sales at retail on our digital marketplace. So clearly, it's been a really sustainable ecosystem for independent developers on Xbox 360.
The people that are in indie are changing all the time. The people that are important in indie are changing all the time. So even though something might have worked a year ago, that might not necessarily be the best strategy to deal with things now. Microsoft thought it did, and in doing so lost a lot of support from indie developers. That one turned out that even the indie developers that were really happy about the amount of money they made, were not happy at the way they were treated by the teams.
For indie game devs in particular, it's really weird for us because publishers are used to dealing with companies, so they sort of just treat you as a company. And it's really weird to be treated like a company when you're a person.
Previously, game developers either had to partner with a publisher or jump through a lot of hoops in order to get their games on Xbox Live Arcade. With the introduction of self-publishing, now any developer will be able to release a game on the console.
So on Xbox One, independent developers really have an additional choice on how to get onto the platform. They can work with Microsoft Studios as a publisher, they can work with a third-party publisher like an Activision or an Electronic Arts, or they can self-publish now with ID at Xbox.
Self-publishing is extremely important to me. I don't think I would even consider not doing publishing on a console if I couldn't self-publish.
I think Microsoft moving away from not allowing self-publishing is such an obvious indicator of them starting to get that all we want is to release our game on their platform and not deal with any of the rest of it. And they'll have an extra game and we'll have more players and it will all work out beautifully.
Sony, on the other hand, was a bit slow in supporting indie game developers during the PS3 era. But now with the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita, we're really seeing them make a push for indie game developers, and in fact, they're probably one of the biggest advocates for it.
We really kind of, in the past, didn't do the best job of going out and just talking to the people we want to talk to, and we decided, hey, we want to change this. And really made a conscious choice to try and do things differently, to go talk to people in a way that was more someone coming up and looking at a game and going, hey, your game's cool, would you like to make it on PlayStation?
We're a really small indie team, and we've just been a group of friends. We've been making this game just for fun, and we've been putting everything we have into it. We showed up at PAX just to show the game, and Sony came over to our booth, and we didn't know they were Sony guys, and then they introduced themselves and they said, how do we get this on PS4? So we were kind of blown away that that was even a possibility.
A representative from Sony actually came to our house and played Towerfall with us, and that's pretty crazy, to think about that. Being
at E3 a while ago and seeing that their indie corner was both at the front of what they were showcasing, but also had all our friends there, all the other developers that we like to hang out with. The fact that they got that atmosphere where it's really about creativity, is really impressive. It's really, really impressive. And they've been happy to sort of make sure that we are happy. And they've gone out of their way to make sure that the developers they work with have the ability to create what they want.
Sony has been really proactive in approaching independent game developers and inviting them to publish their games on the PlayStation 4 and the PS Vita. Microsoft, on the other hand, has been a bit coy, and while we know what their strategy is, we're yet to see it in action.
I think the biggest benefit to supporting independent development on the platform really comes when the player turns on their TV and looks at what's on their Xbox One. We want to make sure that they have the broadest, most diverse amount of games available to them. And obviously, like, some of the most interesting and innovative games right now are coming from independent developers.
You know, we know that Call of Duty will be there, and we know that Madden will be there. Kind of the PS2 era of you can actually go get that fully exclusive title. You know, it's just not economically viable for a publisher to do that these days.
I think the luxury of specializing on a single platform is fast going away. I think nowadays consumers are far more interested in a variety of platforms, and that means us game developers, we really have to start thinking about multi-platform.
It wasn't that long ago that for an indie to get onto a console was sort of impossible, and being able to get onto specific platforms was a necessity to survival. While the way things are now, it's sort of the other way around. It's this weird shift where now being on a platform is a convenience. It's just something that's nice, because if you can't get on Xbox, we'll be on PlayStation. If you can't be on PlayStation, we'll be on Steam. There are so many methods of distribution that they can't really pull the you need us. It's sort of a we can work together to make things better for each other.
Indie game developers and indie games are incredibly beneficial to both the industry and to players. So now it's a matter of which company and which platform holder can create an environment where indie developers and indie games can thrive. And that can only be a good thing for the games industry and for gamers.